have a job. I have a boyfriend. And somehow I still feel lost.
Maybe you feel lost because you're holding yourself back.
I would like to extend Glow's contract until the end of the year.
It's stuck.
What the is happening now?
God, I love opening nights.
Let's go ahead and open this night. Wait, did that work? I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey man, I'm Brian Brushwood, and that, of course, was the preview for what? Season 3 of Glow? Is that right, Bryce?
Season 3, coming August 9th.
I'd like to believe that
Netflix.
they continue to expand like this alternate timeline where Glow is just as big as the WWE today.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great, because I think otherwise Glow has a pretty definitive end.
Well, we are very happy to have back on the show our special guest, Ek from HockeyBuzz.com. Welcome back, Ek. How's it going?
It is going phenomenal, Tom and Brian. I've been all over this great country of ours chasing that Stanley Cup that your St. Louis Blues took home.
Man, yeah, if anybody doesn't know, I have been a St. Louis Blues fan all my life. The St. Louis Blues are never supposed to win the Stanley Cup. They're only supposed to go to the playoffs, and they won it this year, which is still kind of hard for all of us who follow that team to believe. But we booked Ek on the show before they won. So now we're stuck. We must, always have Ek on for the show after the Stanley Cup.
I'm game. I love it. It was such an incredible experience. And all my friends in St. Louis were the same way as you. That you guys are all fatalists, like to the umpteenth degree. They would constantly say, oh, we're winning out, but it's going to come back to St. Louis and we're going to lose.
Yeah.
I would love to believe that booking Ek was a called shot. Like, it was just like, all right, look, we all know how it's going to end. Let's rub it in his face.
We all know how it's going to end. So let's have him on to console me after they... Wait, what? No, they won.
That's crazy.
All right, man. But Ek always is good talking cord cutting stuff with us as well. And we got some good stuff to talk about today. So let's get right to our primary target. Suzanne Collins announced a new novel in the Hunger Games universe coming out May 19th, 2020, set 64 years before the events of the first book. Don't worry, you're on Cordkillers, not Sword and Laser. You'll get there. Collins said it will be set in the Reconstruction period, 10 years after the war, commonly referred to as the Dark Days. So this would be around the time of the 10th Hunger Games, because remember, Panem had the war against District 13, et cetera, et cetera. Lionsgate chairman Joe Drake said the studio communicated with Collins during the writing and looks forward to working closely with her on the movie. So more Hunger Games movies coming. Now that's interesting enough. I'm sure we got thoughts on that, but I wanted to also point out that Variety had a headline today, Men in Black International Shaft add to summer sequel slump, because Men in Black International did $28 million. Now, it wasn't expected to do as well as the original Men in Black, but $28 million, even leading the box office, is very small. Dark Phoenix also did not do well. Is it time to, Variety seems to be saying it's time to back off sequels and prequels and extended universe kind of stuff. Brian, what do you think?
Well, the temptation, of course, is to let your fan brain take over and say, like, yes, absolutely, rehashing old crap, that's dumb. Stop doing it. But it's important. Anytime I start to lead with my heart, I usually end up wrong and in trouble. So it's like I'm hesitant to do that. But by the numbers, look at what a surprise smash success Get Out and Us was, and investing in new storytellers. And the Blumhouse method of basically saying fixed budgets, keep it small, let people go nutty in whatever direction they want. They're buying a lot of wildly speculative scratch-off lottery tickets, but you buy 100 of those, you could eventually start to rely on one of them being a breakout success. And of those breakout successes, some number of them are going to be talents like Jordan Peele who can keep churning out the hits. And so I think that we've seen a lot of blue chip thinking for a while, and I'm glad to see that finally inside the Hollywood machine, people are finally thinking maybe it's time to rethink that and get back to a more heterogeneous, risky strategy of, I don't know, letting storytellers tell stories and letting directors take chances.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I mean, this feels like to me that we're to like compare it to the music world for a second. It feels as if we're only letting Blue Oyster Cult and Yes make albums. You know, like that we're not going to let anybody else ever really like. If I was a musician and I was trying to get my album sold, you know how these young filmmakers are going, and it's like, oh, you don't have an Avenger, you know, you're not in. You know, I think I'm happy to see this sort of ending because although the nostalgia does of course exist for all of us. I just recently saw Yes in Asia in Atlantic City, and it was horrible. Just absolutely horrible.
Yeah, come at us, Asia.
First of all, never bring a woman to a prog rock show. That's a given. But beyond that, they were just terrible. But what people loved about it, I mean, as a musician myself, they weren't playing together. They apparently didn't know they were in the same band. But you know, as a musician myself, what killed me was the audience loved the riffs, like you would love the riffs of a superhero going through something. Like you would love. There's that sentimentality that's there, but at the same time, there was a little bit of like, okay, we could probably use something new.
Yeah, I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe has shown you can do something special with it if you put a lot of effort into it. And not everyone is going to be great, but they have been able to keep this going much longer than I would have expected. But I think they're, you know, in many ways, the exception that proves the rule. It's really difficult to do that. And so then it goes back to what you were saying, Brian, which is it's safe to make a prequel or a sequel because you know there's a built-in fan base that wants to see it anyway. I want to see Hunger Games 64 years before Katniss. I'm curious. I'm that person who's always like, ooh, how did it start? What's the origin? Let me see that. But it is very difficult to make those compelling and stand alone, partly because you know that people are going to come and you already have a story that you can lean on. So you're not forced to tell those new stories. On the other hand, you don't know if Get Out is going to be Get Out or if it's going to be a $5 million thing that may be great, nobody sees. Like it's just that safe bet versus taking a risk situation that companies, you know, if they took a risk every time, it's impossible to say whether they would continue to make the money that they need to make to stay afloat.
Is it possible, and I don't know if any of us are married to any employees of Rotten Tomatoes, but is it possible that the very institutions of IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes are causing we're now feeling the seismic shift of what that effect has as far as game theory for creating movies, where because it used to be, no matter how good or bad the movie was, if you spent enough money, you could pretty much force everybody to watch it, right? Yeah. That's less valuable now, or I think I'm going to say that's still pretty much true if you spend enough money, but the more efficient strategy is try to get that rare unicorn gem of that 100% Rotten Tomatoes score, even if it's just for opening weekend before somebody ruins it, and then bank on that and get that word of mouth out there. Do you think that's what we're seeing right now?
Could be, you know, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, Brian. It really does. Like to me, you know, we almost need that, like the like artsy movie houses where the good movies used to come out of, and then they would make it big. But there's so few of those left that everybody has to play in the same theater. Again, like the music, we all have to play in the same big stadiums, you know, and that would be difficult for a lot of, you know, and risky, like you're saying, Tom, for the. But at the same time, you know, how do you ever find the next best thing if you're just relying on the old?
I am married to someone who works for Rotten Tomatoes.
I knew it.
Don't listen to anything I'm going to say now.
I knew it.
I think Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb are just the most visible and potentially the most influential emblems of the fact that we have way more information than we've ever had before we go to a movie. You know, in the 20s, you knew that Clark Gable was in the movie, right? So you went to see it. It happened one night. Sure, he's in it. Love it. Great. I'm going to go see it. That was about it. Then the movie critics came along, obviously, around that same time, and people started to find movie critics that maybe they trusted, maybe they didn't, and that had some influence. But we've never had this much information that we could find out from our friends, from people we follow, advanced trailers, interviews with the stars to help us make this decision. And I think that has a huge effect on it.
Yeah, so I guess back to the original question, is it time for Hollywood to, you know, pull back? Man, it's worth noting that I believe, with the notable exception of Avengers Endgame, all of this summer has been a big old fat garbage fire of just poor performance across the board, regardless of how
Aladdin
good.
did all right.
Wait, do you own Aladdin? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Disclosure.
Wonder why it came top of mind. Yeah.
Look, everybody does all right internationally or whatever, but I mean, compared to what we have come to expect, we've seen a lot of underperformers and not a lot of I don't know, breakouts. So I don't know. The fan of me says yes, please, more new stories. And in that regard, this is technically a new story where they're working directly with the author. To me, the important part about the Suzanne Collins story is that, much like Game of Thrones, they are working directly with the author on the movie parts at the time of development, which seemed to yield, for the most part, very good results for Game of Thrones until they got ahead of schedule.
It's interesting. In publishing, they have the same issue, which is they just want authors to create series and keep writing in that series because they know they will work. Whereas a brand new story, that might be risky. People might buy it because Chuck Wendig or Suzanne Collins wrote it, but they might not. So give us more in that. So there's the same pressure there. But because it's the author, I feel like there's a little more trust that, well, your universe, your system. And so we're a little less judgmental there.
Well, and I think,
and look at the band situation. Excuse me, sorry. But look at the band situation, like a Taylor Swift, for example. Okay, I know somebody who plays in her band, and she is so big, like she's like the Marvel universe of musicians, and she is so big that she can make albums that are totally not like anything she's ever made before at the same time because she just knows that whatever she makes is going to work. So there's that element of things in movies that we're seeing as well, where you can just. They can go as far off the rails as they want to with some of these Marvel movies because they are just going to work, and that therefore and I think studios tend to think that that's the creative thing, like, oh, we're being creative because we're doing Spider-Man a different way, instead of just trying to find something totally new, which I know is risky and difficult, but that's why you have creative people working there. They should be able. That's their job, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's to tie the knot on this. I think the thinking has always been, well, we have no sure way of knowing which ideas are good or not. We have people whose guts we trust and people who don't. But by golly, we do know that a sequel has a built-in audience. And what we're seeing now is, guess what? Sequel having a built-in audience doesn't mean as many dollars as it used to. Those audiences aren't always as big as they used to. Not every sequel or prequel or reboot is going to bring in those guaranteed dollars like it used to. So now that's starting to look a little bit risky as well, which means maybe we'll just go back, like we've all been saying, to just finding good stories, whether they're prequels or sequels or original storylines. Just take some chances and show us some good stuff.
Heck yeah, dude. I'll tell you what, one gritty reboot that everybody loved is a little thing called Cordkillers. Used to be another show, yeah. And then they much like some kind of Dark Phoenix rose from the ashes.
Wow.
And then unlike a certain Dark Phoenix.
Not like a Dark Phoenix. Yeah.
Hey man, do us a favor. Head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers. We are 100% viewer funded by you guys, listeners and viewers alike. Join the 1,341 other of your best friends that you have yet to meet at patreon.com/Cordkillers. Keep us in business. Get your own RSS feed and early access to all the secret goodies, including our after talk segments.
It's $1.
It's $1.
We'll wait.
$1.
Just pull to the side of the road. Stop running.
You know what? All that talking I did it all wrong. Let's try it again. New ad goes like this. Hey, can we have $1, please? You can go to patreon.com/Cordkillers and give it to us. Thanks.
Time for How to Watch. A couple things in here today. Samsung's U.S. support account tweeted that Samsung TV owners should run the built-in virus scanner every few weeks to prevent malicious software attacks on your TV. The tweet included an instructional video. It was all meant to raise awareness, like, hey, all connected devices could be susceptible to things, so make sure you keep safe. Many news outlets are running the story with the slant that this accidentally made the case of why you shouldn't buy a Samsung Smart TV, because people go, it gets viruses? Our thoughts on smart TVs here have evolved over the years, to say the least. It seems like a good time to check in on how we feel about them.
Oh, man, what a really good litmus test, because I'm very conflicted. On the one hand, I've traditionally been the loudest banger of the just dumb monitors drum, but I got to admit it's awfully convenient that all the televisions that my kids use have a Roku built in. And certainly if I had a Roku, and if Roku said, hey, make sure to go to, just click on this maintenance thing and make sure there's no viruses on your Roku, wouldn't even hesitate about it. So I think to be consistent, I have to say that Samsung did a noble and right thing in this case. It feels weird to say.
I'm actually, I think the worst thing they did was delete that tweet. That tweet was important. And the fact that The Verge and others were kind of snarkily pointing out that maybe it had not the greatest reception amongst people shouldn't have stopped them from admitting that every connected device could be susceptible to this. If anything, Samsung should make it so you don't have to run it yourself. They should just make a setting that says auto scan and fix things every so often.
Yeah, I guess I'm surprised that they wouldn't have done that. That's the weird part to me. But I guess, you do have some kind of point of entry, whether it's like a memory stick or something to look at photos or whatever. Like you have an injection vector. So then
and if they're connected TVs, they're on the web. Right.
But like in-laws I spend a lot of time with, those are the kind of people that would read this article and be like, we'll never buy a smart TV again. Like there are definitely people out there that'll react. They're right to be a little bit worried about the way this is perceived. I think. The last two TVs I bought had Fire Sticks inside them, with Fire Sticks built inside, which I thought were amazing, and I tried to convince them on it, and they're already a little bit nervous. They have heard the thing, well, Samsung, can't they watch me? And I'm like, you don't have a camera on your television, that's not going to happen. You're okay. But, there's a big swatch of the country out there that this does concern them.
Yeah, it and do they read Twitter though?
No. No, they don't. But this will find its way. Like this.
I suppose so. I mean, the thing is to just have security software running, and give folks like us a chance to turn it off if for some reason we want to. Right. But just have it running for most people.
Yeah, that seems totally reasonable. Just bake it into the price. But then again, I don't know how competitive the television market is on price. I guess pretty competitive.
Well, folks, Comcast, right? Am I right? Oh my gosh, Comcast. Well, what are they doing now? Comcast is adding eye tracking to its X1 cable box platform as an accessibility feature. It'll let customers change channels, pull up the program guide, set DVR recordings, and navigate through other menus using only their eyes. Comcast will support multiple eye tracking hardware and software products, including Tobii devices and even sip and puff switches, which a lot of wheelchair users use, as well as other assistive technologies. So you won't have to buy extra equipment to take advantage of it. Customers just sign into Comcast web-based remote control and link it to their cable account. Brian, Comcast helping people with assistive devices use their platform.
Are you trying to bait me into painting the darkest interpretation of this story?
I'm actually kind of miming through my actual reaction to this. Like, what's Comcast doing now? Trying to get people on their X1. Oh, they're saying it's accessibility, but they're also letting people use whatever device they. Actually, this is pretty reasonable and a good thing.
If I'm going to first of all the accessibility stuff, yes, 100%, but this is me spinning my darkest interpretation of this that I can.
Okay.
We talked on this program before about if Netflix were free, but only while a webcam was watching you to watch it, would you accept that deal? And personally, I'd be like, no, I'd rather pay and know that they're not tracking all the micro expressions on my face. If this was purely a play for accessibility, then it seems like they would say, hey, if you need any of this, you can have it. But if they're rolling it out to everybody and trying to tout it as a convenience option, it seems to me that the only way you would do that would be to add some language to the usage license agreement that says, by the way, we do have permission to track your face while you watch programs because that's how this this awesome new feature that will make it super convenient. So you don't even have to move a finger in order to change channels to blah, blah, blah. And once you have that verbiage in the agreement, then guess what you get to do? You get to grab all that data and use it, that sweet, sweet, valuable data on the world's largest test audience. And I don't trust Comcast enough to give them a blanket pass that this isn't part of their decision to roll this out to everybody instead of making a big deal about how, hey, if you need this, it's free to you.
Hey, it was a good attempt. It's a very good attempt. It's useless to you if you don't have a device that takes advantage of it. It's merely an accessibility option.
Because this is not new hardware Comcast is making.
But
this is a website that uses
give that this
existing.
like you make it like, okay, if you're Comcast, like I want to say that they're kind. And if they're doing something that's supposed to be kind to people, they should do it without promoting it like this.
Like without letting people know that it exists, having The Verge report on it, and then me pass it along.
I don't mind them getting the word out, and I don't mind them patting themselves on the backs. That's not the part.
I don't even know that they're patting themselves on the back here. I mean,
all right, so I might have misunderstood this then a little bit, but I understand what you're saying. If they are patting themselves on their back, then I'd have an issue with it. But it could be the kind of thing it is wonderful that it exists. Obviously, if you need it, it's wonderful that it exists. It should not be for everyone. It should be something that's very specific.
I mean, it's like an API. They've basically said the platform now will accept connections from these devices and support them so that you can use them.
Okay. Well, there you go. So this is the television watching you for my grandparents, at least, like that would be them. They would worry about that. If you
don't have this device, it doesn't do anything.
Right. But that's very hard to explain, like to people. I understand that, but I think I could see myself explaining this again to my in-laws and being like, it's not watching you.
All right. I take it back. Hold on. There is a Comcast video called Meet Jimmy. See how our technology is enabling him to be more independent. That feels a little back patty. All right.
Yes.
I don't think they're a company that thinks they need to back. Yeah, they probably do.
Yeah, they are.
I will be really interested about what that does to the agreement stuff, because we've seen stuff. If there's some language in there that gets added that's saying, hey, we get to watch you watch us, then seems like that would be extraordinarily valuable to another arm of the same company, and it seems like that would be very difficult to resist taking advantage of from a data perspective.
We don't know that is what they're going to do. In the meantime, if they were going to help people who use sip and puff and eye tracking because they're paralyzed and want to be able to use the devices that they use for other things with their Comcast box, this is what Comcast would have to do if they were the most golden-hearted people in the world.
Correct. Correct. Look, Tom, I warned you that I was going to try to be the scorpion in this scenario.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I knew that when I put you on my back and started swimming across the river.
You dragged me right in, Brian. I'm with you.
Corrupting the golden hearts of the world, one person
and
at
I'm
a
an
time.
optimist, so you got me. I don't know.
Oh, here's what I would like. Cordkillers@gmail.com. Anybody who uses these accessibility devices, if you're like, no, Brian's right, I would never trust Comcast, I don't care, or honestly, this is actually pretty good for us, let us know. Cordkillers@gmail.com.
Heck yeah.
All right, let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
I like you to say it's all about location.
Under surveillance.
The latest episode of Netflix's Patriot Act with Hassan Minhaj is called Why Your Internet Sucks, and it looks at the problem with broadband speeds and coverage in the United States, acknowledging that the people most affected by the problem might be the least likely to see the episode because they don't have the broadband connection needed to stream to Netflix. The company is putting it out on DVD. I'm making this episode available through the Netflix DVD by mail service, and they're also putting the whole episode on YouTube.
That's a fine marketing gimmick.
It is, right? No, this is a clever marketing gimmick. I'm with you now, Brian.
No, I'm going to be the optimist. I thought that was a beautiful thing to do. I watched the show, and it was the first time actually I've ever seen the Patriot Act. Honestly, I watched it because it was in the notes for the show, and I thought he did a great job. I thought he did a great job explaining it, and I got all sentimental because if the internet wasn't available to me, or like probably all three of us, what would we be doing right now?
We'd be doing this, right?
Right, and that's an amazing thing. It's we all were raised in a school system that couldn't teach us what we were going to eventually have to do. So it's fascinating to me that I think that does need to be available to everybody.
Doesn't Netflix put their shows on DVD? And wouldn't they then make those shows available on their Netflix DVD by mail service?
This does list it as Volume 3, which is how you would list a non-season show.
I mean, maybe they did it faster.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe they sped it up.
Yeah.
Might not usually make
That's a
it.
good question. Do you think there's a single Netflix original that is not available on DVD? Is it possible that this is a total non-story that was cooked up by very smart PR people? Okay, so yeah, we're seeing that there's no Black Mirror, there's no Orange is the New Black.
Well, you got to give it a second to load. So Orange is the Black.
There is Orange is the New Black.
Sure,
It's weird the Black Mirror wouldn't be there because it does exist on DVD. There's no question about that.
It does.
Huh.
Yeah.
I will give them the benefit of the doubt that they put this episode on DVD much quicker than they would have otherwise, right?
I mean, if you're
Usually
going to
the
shine a
DVDs don't
spotlight
come out
on it,
until-
yeah.
I mean, it was a beautiful episode, like in terms of the telling of the idea of that we need broadband in places with people of lower incomes. Like that can help them get out of there, and they can take better classes, they can learn things, they can find a way out. And I thought that part of it, which is obvious to a lot of people, but when it comes on Netflix, it's hitting a little more mainstream. Not like those of us who watch tech shows all the time and understand all this stuff. So it hit a little more mainstream, which I thought was a beautiful thing.
All right, Amazon's Dark Tower series has cast our friend. May I call him our friend?
Yeah,
Brian?
dude, and Justin Robert Young's self-appointed father.
Yeah, Michael Rooker has been cast in the Amazon Dark Tower series alongside Sam Strike, who is supposed to be playing Roland, and Jasper Pakonen as the Man in Black. Deadline says the series will likely focus on Roland's origin story, so pulling from Wizard and Glass, obviously, but maybe some of the short stories too, which there's no definitive knowledge of what Rooker is playing, but it could be something like Eldred Jonas, maybe?
Yeah, or, as I understand it, I'm going to speak Dark Tower-ese. Given that they're beginning at the beginning, his encounter with Eldred Jonas happens after a certain important trial is finished. And later on down the road. And it seems to me like the first season, if we're going chronologically, would be about the events leading up to a certain tower. So if I was going to bet any character, I would bet Court. I would bet that he'll be the one who educates the young crop of would-be gunslingers in the arts of combat.
Oh, and that would be a very Yondu-ish kind of character in a way, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, all he does is beat children. He sits, he clouts them across the ear and tells them, "Shut up, maggot."
With a heart of gold.
Yeah, No, I to be honest, I was really surprised to even hear the speculation about Jonas because that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But it's a perfect fit for Court, and that's a fine first season story. If it's just about a crop of would-be gunslingers, one of them makes it first.
Yeah, well, it depends on where they start it, for sure. Ek, are you into the Dark Tower verse?
I have to say I'm not, unfortunately.
Okay.
So can't really comment on this one.
Will this pull you in, maybe? Michael Rooker, Amazon Prime Video?
Absolutely. I mean, it's got a chance for sure. I mean, I'm always looking for new shows, so I'll definitely check it out at this point.
Pluto TV has added a Doctor Who classic channel. It has about 200 episodes from the first 7 Doctors. Not all of the episodes are there. You got to get BritBox for that. There's also a new Antiques Roadshow channel with more than 300 episodes. Other BBC shows showing up on Pluto TV include Being Erica, Bedlam, Primeval, and Robin Hood. It's all part of a partnership between the BBC and Pluto TV.
Is there a tip of my mind? Maybe one of the viewers can hit us up at cordkillers@gmail.com. I thought there was, when I was thinking of the Doctor Who stuff, I was thinking about there's some website that basically just plays television from certain time zones. So you could just time travel back to 1977 and switch between channels. And I believe it used like a YouTube API so that it was as though you had time traveled back there and you're just watching everything live, complete with commercials.
Very cool. It's true.
Yeah. If anyone remembers what that is, let me know.
Yeah.
I will say the show Being Erica is funny. Last time I was on this show, I talked about it as one of the shows I was watching at the time. So it's a really great show. It's not out of Canada, and it's phenomenal. It's about time travel.
Nice.
Well, I wonder if that service you're talking about, Brian, got put down.
Yeah, I wouldn't surprise me. But
sued or threatened to be sued out of existence, because I love that idea. And if Pluto TV gets enough of these deals that it could do something like that, it'd be amazing.
Right? All of a sudden, that back catalog of like old VHS advertisements, kind of the abandonware of copy. I guess each individual. There's so many defunct companies now that there's got to be a giant treasure trove of timely commercials that nobody owns anymore.
But the problem is, if the company's defunct and you cannot prove ownership, you can still get in trouble.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. Finally, Amazon will release a movie it acquired at Sundance called The Report with Adam Driver. It's coming to theaters September 27th. The significant thing is it will stream just a couple weeks later on October 11th. That's only 2 weeks, which is unusual. Amazon usually plays by the 90-day rule.
Do you think that's an indication of a good movie or a less good movie that they would break that?
I think it's probably less about the quality of the movie. If I had to guess, it would be about the idea that it's not going to get on as many screens anyway. And so they're just like, you know what? Let's do the math and maximize. Like, okay, if we lose this many big theater screens, but we get into streaming this early, it has this effect. And so, yeah, it doesn't really lose us anything.
And what about this thought? By doing this, they're experimenting with it. So they're giving a chance, and it's an obscure enough movie with a relatively famous, geeky, a very famous geeky actor in it. So it has the ability to draw some people in, and then possibly when they're trying to get movies into theaters in the future, they could use this as a threat. You know what I mean? Like they say, well, if we're not going to get movies in theater, we're just gonna put it on, we're gonna stream it anyway.
Well, and that's what Netflix has done, right? Yeah. And Amazon has usually taken the good cop attitude to Netflix's bad cop. But with the Academy deciding not to change things up, it looks like Amazon is like, well, we want to get some awards for The Report, so it will still be up for the Oscar, no problem. Let's try it. Yeah, it's interesting. A few other collected notes. Netflix has picked up an 8-episode second season of Russian Doll. Don Cheadle has been cast in a drama called Don't Look Deeper. It's a sci-fi drama coming to Quibi when it launches next year, telling the story of a teenager in Merced, California, who believes she's not human. Netflix is in production on a UK Spanish crime drama called White Lines about the discovery of the body of a legendary Manchester DJ 20 years after he disappeared in Ibiza. And NBC announced September 26th is the final season premiere of The Good Place.
So I have really complicated feelings about a second season of Russian Doll. Bryce, what did your heart say when you saw that news?
I could be won over by a second season.
I mean, like,
I also don't know that you do the same season. I think you would be better off doing an anthology style.
Oh, that's interesting. I just assumed that they would figure out a way to get the same team in there.
Well, it is going to be the same actors and producers. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. It would be interesting to see. I feel like the thing about Russian Doll is they didn't give all. It feels like they didn't explore all of the space and the ideas around it. It sort of ends on sort of a metaphorical, symbolic ending. So I could be convinced to watch more fleshing out of that world.
Yeah, I guess the thing that I was feeling was one of the things I really admired is how they tied everything up by the end of that season, and it was done, and didn't leave any opening for anything else. But in having done so, they did so well that I think they earned enough credit with me that if they're going to come back and bring it, then I mean, I'll definitely tune in, but I'm just afraid it's like, oh my God, this is the 5th time that I'm living the same day.
Would she live another day? Different day? Happens all over again? A friend? It was happening to a friend and she tries to help him out. This happened to me once. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what we've had our eyes on, something we watched recently that we loved, starting with you, Ek.
All right, so you guys mentioned Pluto TV, and my son has been dealing with something for the last year or so, and he's doing a lot better now, but I've been home with him a lot. And he's gotten completely into riff tracks, which of course is the Mystery Science Theater modern Mystery Science, and they're still doing shows. They're still doing 2 or so a week, and we became sponsors. We support them and stuff like that. And Pluto has a riff tracks and a Mystery Science Theater channel, has one of each, and I think these guys are just phenomenal. I mean, I know it's there's something relaxing. Maybe it's my youth or something, but there's just something relaxing about it to me. Like just to watch a really old bad movie with these guys talking to me, it just takes me back to when I was 12 and no one liked me. Like it's just really a good feeling.
They were essentially tapping into what made Twitch TV such a success decades before it happened.
Right.
Twitch TV is the experience of sitting on a couch while your friend plays a video game, and they brought the experience of sitting on a couch with your cleverest, funniest friends, mocking whatever it is you're watching.
It's just so well done. And, I've always wanted to do one where you're watching hockey with like old hockey stars, the same kind of thing, like the same kind of legendary thing. So I've been watching that a bit, quite a bit. I also got into Sports Night, which was written by the West Wing writer, before West Wing. I can't think of his name, the famous writer from West Wing.
The Walk and Talk special. What's his name? I know who you're talking about. That dude who writes over
great writer. He's an excellent writer.
He did the Newsroom, and I hated that.
Thank you. All right, Aaron Sorkin before West Wing did a show called Sports Night, which is available on Amazon, and it's really good. It's about like an ESPN Sports Center type show. It has one of the women who just got indicted in the college scandal. she's one of them. She's one of the top people on it. But this was done a long time ago, and it's just very entertaining. It's really, really worth watching. And then the final thing I would say was I saw a movie called Before We Go, which is Chris Evans' directorial, and he wrote, from what I understand, this movie as well. And it was done in 2014, so he's already sort of Captain America, and he was already. And he's phenomenal. And this movie is a phenomenally paced, incredibly beautiful film. And we were both, my wife and I were in tears at the end of this movie. It's a great love story about two people basically finding each other, both kind of trapped in New York for the night. And it's an incredibly well done thing. It's if you like that, thing, it's called Before We Go, and it's on Amazon or I think Apple TV as well. But it's really, really solid.
Awesome.
Brian, what about you?
Man, I watched so much TV. I got this recommendation last week. Somebody told me that a 60-plus-year-old movie was worth watching. So me and my 11-year-old daughter watched 12 Angry Men. Hot damn, does that movie stand up? It's really, really good. Also, I watched all 3 of the Black Mirrors. I watched The Office, of course. Watched the first episode of episode 1 of Chernobyl. I finished Good Omens. We'll talk about that later. And damned if I didn't really give a try to like the first episode of season 2 of Cobra Kai. And it's really hard when you love a first season so much, and then the first episode of the second season just tries very hard to convince you that none of that counted and nobody's progressed, and let's reset all our characters and let's undo the progress we made last season. That's a real bummer. I hopefully will get around to watching more. I don't know if it gets better.
Well, I want to mention the Stanley Cup Finals, and not because I just want another chance to marvel at the fact that my St. Louis Blues won it, but also the fact that I was able to watch the entire postseason of the NHL in a way not only would I have never dreamed possible because the Blues were in it, but I just would have never dreamed this possible as a hockey fan growing up. I watched on my phone at a bar. I watched on my phone in a movie theater before I saw Dark Phoenix, which if I had to do it over again, I would just go back outside and keep watching the hockey game on my phone. I watched at home on PlayStation Vue. I found that the PlayStation Vue feed would sometimes glitch, so I watched on the NBC Sports app as an alternative, logging in with my PlayStation Vue credentials, and found that stream to be very reliable. I watched on TVs at bars. I watched on my iPad outside in the backyard. I didn't have to modify my life in order to see the game. I could always bring the game with me. And I just, I think it's just a good chance to kind of step back and reset and look at just how crazy it is that we can bring our television with it, whether it's sports, news, and Netflix, whatever. The cords that bound us are going away.
And it's such a good point because, we've talked when I was on your show way back when, we were talking about sports was like the last thing that Cordkillers couldn't figure out. Remember, that was like the big thing, like live sports. What are you going to do? How are you going to figure that out? And you're so right. I mean, it's so crazy convenient. I mean, with the press boxes in these games. So in Boston, there's a huge press box. So there aren't televisions. So I couldn't see instant replays of things all the time on like you would expect to. And you're in the media, you've got to sort of write about what just happened. But, so I'd have my phone up, I'd pull it up and I'd be watching, which would be, about 20 seconds behind the actual real true to life live event occurring in front of me. But I could see it, there was no question. It's such an outstanding point. And I think the NHL has done a really good job. Their streaming qualities are really solid. And they also, the other thing that was nice too is after the game, before you were sort of stuck watching what you wanted to watch. And if you went to NHL.com, you could watch all different kinds of celebrations from different aspects of things. You could watch the on ice celebration, which I was involved with. And it's a really great, really great job by the NHL, I have to admit.
Yeah, I got up a Saturday morning, installed the KSDK Channel 5 app and the CBS Channel 4 KMOV app, and had two views on the parade. And then we had to go leave. And while my wife was busy doing something, I went to a cafe, sat on my phone, watched the parade through the Channel 2 Fox station in St. Louis on Twitter. Twitter was live streaming the parade. So, I didn't even miss any of that.
You never saw the parades before. They were never available for you, ever. I mean, you had to be there unless you were in the town.
Blues never had a parade before. But yeah, even if they had.
I can assure you, to being in towns that have had parades, you could not view them.
Yeah. And Drew Nielsen is admonishing me for watching in a theater. I was only watching while the lights were up in the theater before the movie started. Once the movie started, I turned off my phone. I was not.
Well, I'm worse than that. I was watching during Shazam. I took my kids to Shazam, and I was just couldn't take it. And I ended up watching during Shazam at one point. Yeah.
Oh no. All right, Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, we got a letter into the email box from Mike. Mike writes, I want to write about Technotis, Edit, and I. It's an indie animation produced by a very small team in Serbia working at home for over 5 years. It's available on Amazon, free on Prime. I bought it at $10 to support the creators. A very futuristic science fiction film dealing with AI and human minds connected to the internet from Mike Keeper. Yeah, this is interesting. I only got to watch about 20 or 30 minutes today. About this, but it's a really interesting thing. It's a mix of 2D and 3D animation. It's about a young woman, Edit, who is a psychology student who she's taking this university exam and she's failed it over and over, and ends up installing this military chip in her head to help her pass the exam. But then the chip gives her extraordinary powers, and so. It's also based on a comic book of the same name, Technotis, but apparently the plot is a little different. This movie, Technotis, Technotis, Edit and I, is streaming on Amazon Prime, Hoopla, Vudu, and Tubi in the United States. Check out justwatch.com for your local listing.
Very cool. If you got something we should be on the lookout for, be sure to email us, cordkillers@gmail.com. Brian?
Yo.
Tell us something.
Hey man, it's summertime. You know what happens during the summertime? Everybody gets out of school, and what do? They want to watch YouTube videos. So this is an important time for both the Modern Rogue channel and the Scam Nation channel. And it's time to bring up something that I don't think I've talked about on this show before. I don't like to put people out, so I tend to do a lot of things myself. Like, for example, when an episode comes out, I was like, well, I want to get the word out. This seems relevant to, let's say, for example, a subreddit like Learn Useless Talents or Magic or whatever. So it's like I would just post it myself. And then and they kept knocking them down. They would start taking off like a rocket, and then the mods would remove it. And they're like self-promotion. And I'm like, look, I get that you want me to go put on a dress and pretend to be the other Bugs Bunny, but like, why do that? And finally, one of the mods explained it in a way that I got it. They flatly said, your content is great. It is always welcome here. But if we are seen giving you a full pass, then we have no answer for every asshat with an Instagram account posting their own stuff there. And once they put it that way, once I realized that I was actively causing trouble for the mods of all my favorite subreddits, I realized well, I guess I'm done. I'm not going to post my own stuff anymore, which means if you want to support the show and you don't want to spend money, if you want to support us and help do stuff, I think most of our content is pretty great. And an awful lot of it tends to go viral and rocket when it shows up on Reddit. So at your own discretion, please be the one, because I can't be the one to post it.
Scam Nation
so
and
they
Modern
know
Rogue
it's
on
good.
YouTube.
Your
Yes.
stuff is phenomenal, Brian. Honestly, it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
It's like, and anyone, I mean, honestly, we all have to trumpet each other's causes, because, yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many episodes of various things you've been in. I've watched with my son over the last year, so it's awesome stuff.
Oh, that's very kind of you. But it will be up to our audience to share it with Reddit.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
None of you are at standing desks, right? You're all sitting down?
Yes.
Everybody's sitting down?
Yes.
Good?
I think so.
Okay, because I got some shocking news here.
Okay, good,
Oh,
good. Hold on. Let me take a sip of water.
Brace
Go ahead.
yourselves, folk. Yeah. The latest consumer satisfaction index is out, and cable didn't do very well.
I'm going to spare you. Imagine I just did a wild
Did a
spit
spit
take.
take,
Yeah.
Should have done
Yeah.
a spit take. I was a general.
Cable as a whole stayed at 62. It didn't go up, didn't go down. As a comparison, the U.S. Postal Service got a 70. Fixed line telephone service got a 71. And social media companies got a 72. When you break down subscription TV, AT&T Uverse did the best at 69. Still not as good as the post office. It was down 1.4, actually, followed by Verizon, Fios, Dish, and DirecTV. Down near the end was Frontier.
I'm surprised social media companies are so far down as well.
Oh yeah, because they ruined democracy.
Yeah,
That's what this is going.
I mean,
on,
that's
yeah.
That's
gotta be-
why they started to get the knock.
yeah.
This is just Facebook, essentially.
Meanwhile,
Yeah, not so much Twitter. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
maybe.
there are probably more people thinking of Facebook in this terms of this thing.
Amazon is changing the name of its ad-supported IMDb free dive streaming service to IMDb TV. The
Much
free
easier to say.
just rolls off the tongue. The free content section has tripled too, thanks to new deals with Warner Brothers, Sony Pictures Entertainment, MGM Studios. The service is also set to launch in Europe later this year. IMDb TV, it really does not roll off the tongue, is available in the Prime Video app and on the Fire TV, quote, your apps and channels, end quote, row.
I actually didn't realize this was available in Prime Video. I thought you had to go to the IMDb site to get it, or I don't know, the IMDb app. So that's odd, but okay. Good for it. Better name, right?
Is it?
Than Free Dive.
Free dive, well, okay, like,
But you could just say free dive. You wouldn't need to say IMDb TV.
correct. And also,
Good point.
Also, free dive sounds silly because we haven't come to associate it with whatever it offers. Just like Amazon sounded like a silly name until it sounded like Amazon.
Mhm. Yeah. All right.
We have an NHL trade to announce, Tom. I don't know if you care about
Is it who?
it. Just happened just because this is the big week for me, trade week coming up. But yeah, so those who out there who are hockey fans, Jacob Trouba has been traded from the Winnipeg Jets to the New York Rangers. So it's a pretty big deal because he's a defenseman that a lot of people were trying to get. So there you have it.
There you
Just-
go.
heard
Break
it
your
here. I
hockey news now on Cordkillers.
just put it right up on the website as you guys were talking because I just got a text from a source, so it's done. Yep.
Now you're going to be on hockeybuzz.com, folks. You see, he never stops. He's going to keep you up to date.
That's right.
HD Home Run has a new Roku channel called HD Home Run OTA Live that can access an HD Home Run's live channels and view the guide. Doesn't do any DVR stuff. The company says it hopes to bring more features to the app, like support for the cable TV tuner that HD Home Run also has. You'll need to have your Roku hooked up to a device that can decode Dolby Digital or AC3 audio over HDMI, and then you're good to go.
Right on. Variety of sources say Viacom will launch a streaming service called BET Plus later this year with originals from Tyler Perry and Tracy Oliver's First Wives Club. Few details are known, but it will supposedly pull content from across Viacom channels, just not just BET.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess Plus is now the new name for everything, right? You take your brand name and you add plus to the end for your streaming service.
Yeah, and it probably, on the one hand, that's massive amounts of brand dilution because, once your brand means everything, it means nothing. But on the other hand, if it gives you a general flavor for what you're in for, that's not the worst thing on the planet.
Yeah, if you become a Patreon, you'll get Cordkillers Plus.
Yeah. It's Cordkillers, only we also talk about our lawns.
It's pretty much true.
Exactly.
Hulu and FX will get the streaming and linear rights to Lionsgate theatrical films in 2020 and 2021. This replaces Lionsgate's deal with Epic. Films from Lionsgate's Summit sub-brand continue to go to HBO. However, this new Hulu and FX deal and the HBO deal end at the same time, making it possible for Lionsgate to eventually move all those films over to its own Lionsgate-owned stars.
Man, deals. They take a long time.
They do, and they confuse everyone.
Well,
Yes.
and if you're like, why do they keep moving those movies around? This is why, because they had a deal and one deal was ending, and they're like, well, we don't want to move them to stars. Yeah, let's get some money out of Hulu and FX. And Disney's like, we got lots of money to pour into Hulu and FX. No problem. We'll totally do that. So there you go.
The Hollywood Reporter has a story noting that Snapchat's show Endless Summer started its second season June 15th. Last season had 28 million unique viewers. Over the last year, time spent watching shows on Snapchat every day more than tripled. Snapchat's shows are around 5 minutes long and they're shot in vertical video. Snapchat says it reaches 90% of the 13 to 24-year-olds in the U.S. Can that be right, Tom?
Snapchat, not the show, but Snapchat itself. Apparently, yeah.
That seems astonishing because none of my 13 to 24-year-olds have Snapchat.
They are the
That
10%.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, my 17-year-old daughter is all about Snapchat.
Yeah.
All about it. Yeah.
I included this story not because we really covered these kinds of shows. It's not really cord cutting, but because when we do, we often say this isn't going to work, like Quibi, right?
Right.
Quibi's a little longer form than this, but here's an example of it working. I don't know that means these kids grow up and continue to watch this kind of short form content, or if it stays kind of age dependent, but it is working.
I think as a Snapchat, as a father of a Snapchatter, I think that it's kind of like Instagram where they just it is just a place where she just exists, like that's where she's comfortable and anything that comes up there, she's more comfortable watching it there.
Yeah.
Similar to if in the old days when we would watch Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, and then Three's Company, whatever came on next, we would stay with it because that was our home. And that's really old. It sounds really
It's
old.
not a replacement for TV. It's an entirely new thing. That's where she is. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
it's
makes
exactly
sense.
that's her place.
Mhm. All right, folks, let's move to some dispatches from the front. On episode 270, we speculated reasons The Good Place might end after 4 seasons. And one reason Brian put forward was the idea that the creator or producers might want an ending because they have other opportunities due to the show's success. Well, Jesse, a.k.a. Hometown Rival, wants to point out that Michael Schur, the creator and executive producer of The Good Place, is also the creator and executive producer of Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Parks and Rec. He was also co-executive producer of the American version of The Office and played Mose on that show. On its face, the concept of The Good Place likely sounded crazy to NBC network executives, and I venture it only got shot because of Schur's reputation for creating hits. Most of the other producers shared in Parks and Rec's success and collectively have many impressive credits, including Veep, Master of None, Lost, The Martian, 30 Rock, Seinfeld, Silicon Valley, and Broad City. That's not to say bigger opportunities aren't available. I just want to believe this was a team of creatives doing what's best to serve the story, and I have no doubt Schur and company will go on to make other amazing entertainment.
100% agreed across the board. And I also want to believe that we could take that letter at exactly its face value. But I would be remiss if we didn't inject the
Explore
possibility
the
that there was
idea.
some other reason for everything.
What strikes me is that Jesse's describing that maybe the decline of other shows led them to be able to do The Good Place, right?
Yeah,
They wouldn't have
yeah.
been able to get The Good Place if they hadn't had the credibility and also the freedom from doing The Office,
And the
Parks
actors,
Rec,
right?
et cetera.
The actors available from other failed shows too.
Oh yeah.
Is anybody else just blown away that Mose from the Office is this guy? That just blew my head. I'm sorry.
That's amazing. We got a number of letters about, we had a question about running a Plex server and whether or not to, what the best solution with a network attached storage unit would be. Yes, we are. A bunch of people were like, you guys were talking like a Plex server is a piece of hardware. No, we are aware that it is software that you run on hardware. Alan writes in saying, hey, Brian and Tom, if you're storing your media on a NAS, some things to consider. Number one, if you run the Plex server directly on the NAS, the system on the NAS is often not powerful enough to run Plex smoothly, especially if you require format conversion. Also, the NAS probably doesn't have the latest version of Plex available. On the other hand, number two, if you run Plex on a separate computer, you then need to make sure that that computer is running as a server, possibly on 24/7. Also, things will be smoother if the computer running Plex is connected to the NAS or over a wired network, not wireless. All of this fantastic advice to everybody who wrote in. Thank you guys so very much.
Yeah, John from Creamridge pointed out the NVIDIA Shield box as an option if you don't want to get a NAS and run your own server off of that. It's designed to work as a Plex server and set-top box. He says, while I do not have personal experience with this, I do believe it's a good lower cost option. I totally should have thought of the Shield box. That's a great one. Thank you. And thank you, Ek, for joining us. We know you're busy. You're like taking trade tips in the middle of the show. So we super appreciate you taking the time to chat with us and not missing a beat, man.
I've said it many times. You guys are inspirational to me, and I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't have started doing this if it wasn't for you guys and other people out there, like the Casey McKinnons of the world and the people who I just grew up watching. I really am just thrilled that I can do this. And the next weekend is absolutely insane. The hockey draft is in Vancouver on Friday, so it doesn't stop for me and then July 1st we sign free agents, and July 1st last year is when the Blues traded for a lot of players that turned into their Stanley Cup. So that's so this next 2 weeks are probably my two busiest weeks of the year. So if you want to come by Hockey Buzz, we're constantly on, and we're working as hard as we possibly can. And we also have a Patreon too, at patreon.com/hockey. So you can check that out as well. We appreciate it.
Right on. Thank you so much for joining us.
I can say from experience that if you become friends with Ek, several years later, your favorite team will win the Stanley Cup.
True fact.
Exactly.
100%.
Guarantee. So Toronto people, get out there.
Go Leafs. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, which is also carried on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll see you again next week.
Hey guys, Brian and Tom here, and it's just the same old message at the end of the credits, just like always.
That's right, Brian. Nothing new here except your name showing up.
Oh my gosh,
because
I've got a
you
name.
just supported us on Patreon.
Yeah, all those $5 donors. Look at that. That's your name in pixels. We're gonna make you famous, kid. Put your name in pixels on the
classic
internet.
names in there, but some of you are new. Some of you aren't there. It's sad. What can they do, Brian?
I mean, they could go to patreon.com/Cordkillers and pledge $5 an episode and be one of these amazing people, like this one.
Amazing.
Oh, look at that name right there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.